Hello, everyone. Give me just a minute and we'll get everybody turned on. Wanted to turn the show on so folks could start filing in. It's been a while since we had a joy of game mastering, but I'm excited to be here talking with y'all today. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I'll go ahead and tear down the veil, right? Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Joy of Game Mastering, the show where I break down some of the mysticism between what it is to be a game master so you can start running games of your own. That's the most important role in the tabletop industry, and I am very excited to help you on your journey. Today, we're going to be talking all about what a GM is, what types of GMs there are, what attracts people to doing this sort of thing. I want to open it up so you guys could share GM stories, just how you got into it, or fun memories you have of a GM, or not so fun memories you have of a GM. So as everybody starts filing in, we'll get started. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. Should probably put a brand up here so Troy doesn't kill me. Yeah, like I said, my name is Alex, and I am, I am most often the line developer for Mutants and Masterminds here at Green Onion Publishing. I've been a game master for 20 plus years, and now it's my job because I have a bad habit of turning my hobbies into jobbies. So here we are. Rebel Moose, good to see you. This Tuesday has certainly been a Tuesday. I feel that in my soul. So all of us are just gonna gather in and we're gonna share stories and teach each other some stuff, and we'll see how it goes. And the thing I want to talk about today is types of GMs, or classifications of GMs, if you want to be scientific about it. I find a lot of the time that there are a lot of archetypes for players. Like, everybody knows sort of like the murder hobo, the actor, the spotlight hog, the wallflower, all of those sort of why people are players of role-playing games, but you don't often see lists of archetypes for game masters. So I wanted to dive into that a little bit today and talk about sort of what some of their strengths are, what some of their habits might be, what some of their weaknesses might be, what kind of things you can expect, and what kind of things to look out for yourself if you're trying to figure out what kind of game master you are. So we're going to go ahead and dive on into that. Hey, Learn Music, good to see you. Hope you're having an okay Tuesday today. Yeah, what is a game master? It is a role that has existed in tabletop role-playing games for pretty much as long as there have been tabletop role-playing games. And it is often a sort of labyrinthine task to see into the depths of. There are many different things that a game master can be, and there's many different reasons to be drawn to playing as the game master. Hi, Squire. Good to see you. Hope you are having a fabulous day. Yeah, but game masters. My own personal journey, I began when I was 11. My dad bought my brother and I the 3rd edition starter set for the Ampersand game. And he had been a player most of his life, and he told my brother and I, if you want to play D&D with me, you have to teach yourself. So he gave us the starter box, sent us off to the basement to go and learn how to D&D. And we opened the box up, looked at all the different character sheets that were in there, found out that there was a book called My Friends, and my brother forced me to do that, and I've been here ever since. It's an interesting task being a game master. You're wearing a lot of hats. You're part referee, you're part storyteller, you're part actor, part bad guy, part pacing editor, part vibe check. You're often the person hosting the game, and I've found in a lot of instances. So yeah, there's a lot of different reasons that game masters do the game master thing. And my internet is saying it's unstable, so please let me know if I'm coming through okay for everybody. And why you decide you want to be a game master is, that's a personal journey of your own. I was sort of thrust into the role. And there were times throughout my career as a game master where I would get burned out. I would be a little resentful of being the forever GM. But I've since sort of accepted that that's my fate. And I find more often than not, I have trouble having as much fun when I'm a player and not the game master, which is a bad habit to get into. I want to talk about the types of game masters. I've sort of made a few archetypes. Feel free to add archetypes if you guys think I'm missing anything. But sort of general types of game masters you might find out there. And this isn't a condemnation list. This isn't saying that any of these are bad per se. There's only one bad kind of GM, and that is the GM who says, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 1 million. If you don't guess it right, I'm going to punish you. That's my least favorite kind of GM. But I've come up with a couple of archetypes. Let me know if you guys think about anything else. I've got the Tyrant, which is the game master who is there specifically to be an adversary to the player characters. Sort of an old school Grognard GM where the goal is to be the murder GM, kill, if you're showing up to my table, please make sure you have an extra character sheet, or I've made a bunch of unwinnable traps and things like that. Sort of the old Tomb of Horrors style game master. I've dubbed the Tyrant. Tempo, this is system agnostic. This applies to any game. This conversation today will apply to any game that has a game master, a narrator, a dungeon master, storyteller. Sort of just identifying that role in our community and breaking it down. So the Tyrant, I've got the Trickster, which is a game master who is most interested in finding unique and interesting ways to both interface with the mechanics of the game and to challenge their players outside of unpunishingly unfair combat. These are the GMs who like to employ NPCs who are duplicitous, or they like to have the game end with a dream sequence, or everybody wakes up back in Kansas, all that fun stuff. Sort of the GM who is just looking to take knives from the players and plant them in different places and see what happens. I've got the Cartographer, which could also be called the Tolkien. This is the person who has created a wonderful world, and the best way they have found to share that world with other people is to make them play games in that world. So this is the person who is, they have 1 million cities and 500,000 words of documentation for how their campaign setting works. Every NPC has a stat block. They are the people who are sort of building the diorama that the players get to experience, and they're most interested in their world building. I've got the Actor, which is the game master who is here for the drama, here for the story, here to improvise, here to sort of get involved with the players, and the role of cool GM who's like, I don't care about how that mechanic works. This is a really cool story beat. We should do this. I find I'm often that kind of game master personally. And then, just as a joke, I wrote down the Prisoner, which is the forever GM. Somebody who really wishes they were playing, but none of their friends will step up and do it, so they find themselves in the chair over and over and over again. So, yeah. Learn Music says they're an actor GM. Yeah. That's one of the reasons I love being a GM, is the actor sort of situation where I often, for myself, I'll present a situation for my players without knowing how they will get to the end of that. So I don't know what the solution is when I present the problem to them, and I'm interested to see, how they react to it, what drama they pull out of it, and following the threads that they lead, sort of the back and forth improv style of yes and. Gray Matters Game Mastering. Hey, Jay Gray, how you doing today? It says GMs should generally attempt to draw upon the different archetypes as they develop sessions, internalize all aspects as much as possible. Yes, these are archetypes, and a lot of people lean in certain directions, but the idea is if you want to be a well-rounded GM, you should be able to tackle each of these sorts of challenges. Maybe not the Tyrant. The Tyrant is an old school GM, but there are gamers who want that. That is a way people have fun in this hobby, is old school dungeon crawls and hex tiles and all that fun stuff. So there's a place for people like that too. What other archetypes do we think are out there? I'm thinking the novelist, the person who really wanted to write a book but decided to run a game instead. You could also call the novelist the railroad baron or the train conductor. My primary is cartographer. My secondary traits come from actor. Yeah. And I find once you get into the rhythm of game mastering, you find one of these niches to sit into. The social engineer. Tell me a little bit about that, Jake Gray. That sounds interesting. And yeah, guys, tell me where you think you fall in. What are some quirks that you have as a game master? Yeah, Jay Gray, I had written down the maestro as an archetype, but I wasn't sure how to articulate it. The social engineer is a better way to say what I was thinking when I wrote down the maestro. The person who is conducting and really just sort of directing the pitch of how the game is going along. What conflicts are coming up, how does the story move around the characters? In a lot of ways, I find the opposite of a railroader is the social engineer, somebody who presents an interesting problem and then watches what the players do without necessarily forcing one path or the other. They're more interested in seeing what happens. I use gaming experiences to bring opportunities to provide avenues of social engagement and societal storytelling. Yeah, that's dope. I wonder what kind of archetype that we're thinking for that. How would you describe? Oh, okay. That's the social engineer. You're imagining it's your way of hanging out with your friends. It's an activity that gives everybody an excuse to come together and have this sort of hosting experience. Yeah, that is 100%. I sort of liken that to the sort of social player. Because there are players who show up to the game and they're just happy to be there with their friends. They're not really, and they're so interesting to watch as a GM because a lot of the times it's like, are you having a good time? I can't tell. And it's like, and then they say, yeah, I'm having a wonderful time. I don't need to be like, don't interact with me. I'm having a great time. Tell me when I need to roll an attack check, that sort of thing. Jay Gray says, oh no, I mean social and a poli-sci kind of type of way. Okay. Squire is kind of a cartographer for the most part, maybe failed novelist. You only fail as a novelist when you give up, Squire, is my advice. Learn music. What's the GM equivalent to the rules lawyer, or you just call them an RLGM? Yeah, that's my, I call them that's sort of in the tyrant category, or the trickster category I had put together for somebody who is really interested in the letter of the law. I guess it could be the judge. We could call them the judge or the litigator, something like that. The rules lawyer would be answering to the judge, so I'm going to go with the judge. Somebody who really likes involved game systems, things where you have dice pools and you have to do quadratic equations and things like that to get to the bottom of how the game works. Or in Mutants and Masterminds instance, a lot of people who really like to engineer the character creation system and the power creation system to see what sort of interesting ways things can be manipulated and moved around. I ask that question a lot in session. Are you having fun? Yeah, Squire, and I think that is a perfectly great question to ask. I often find myself trying to gauge if people are having fun without straight up asking it, and a lot of my problems will be solved if I just asked, is everybody having a good time? I do try to ask at the halfway point of a lot of my sessions, is this a temperature check? How's everybody feeling? Do you need to see more of something, less of something? And then I'll usually have something like that at the end of the session as well. Jay Gray says, I run a game with my sister where we go through sessions all based around how to affect social change in a society. Oh, what game is that? It's kind of a macro macro sociology game, which is kind of, I think that would be neat to play. What are your guys? What are y'all's least favorite types of game masters, or what are red flags for you when you see a game master in the wild for the first time? And that could be a loaded question. I have a ton of experience with strange GMs because I go to a lot of conventions, but that might not be the case for a lot of people. Using Changeling the Lost right now. Oh, cool. It's all about playing games to derive meaning in our own socioeconomic systems. Yeah. I feel that our socioeconomic systems, Conrad. Yeah, Changeling's cool. I like World of Darkness. I've been a fan of it for a long time. At Gen Con this year, I was the one. Jonesy and I were the only Green Ronin GMs running events at Gen Con, and I got put in the room with Renegade Game Studios. So it was me running M&M and My Little Pony Power Rangers, Vampire the Masquerade, and Werewolf, all in the same room. And I was the one oddball out. And I felt bad because they had people checking tickets and checking people in for the Renegade games, but not my games. So the Renegade people were like, "Why are you here? Who are you?" They were very polite neighbors, I will say that. It was a very interesting problem for everybody. I think my camera is going bad. Like, it keeps doing that. It did it at M&M yesterday too. Squire Cortez. The worst was my old GM, the cackling, gotcha, everything is out to get you type. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that in my bones. That's the GM I was talking about, Squire, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and infinity. Guess it on the nose or you're in trouble. Oh, GM who picks a favorite player or GM PC would be my least favorite types. I need an archetype for that. I need a name for that kind of archetype. And I'll admit, I was 11 when I started, and I wanted to be a player, so I was guilty of the GM PC growing up. So it took a long time to sort of work my way out of that. I say that, but my novel was about my M&M character, so maybe I'm not so good at that. I do try to be fair with my players, though, now, these days. Oh, Moose says, I like established rules. I want to know how mechanics work, so very freeform GMs that run systems, not campaigns, entire systems that are 90% homebrew without written rules bug me. Yeah, and I think freeform is fine as long as it's consistent. And when you're dealing with 90% of things that aren't written down, consistency is going to be a problem. And being able to keep people to accountability, like being accountable, that's really, really tough. And yet the old GM's wife always came out unscathed in his machinations. Well, he had to live with her. He didn't have to live with you. What is it about being a game master that you guys enjoy? Is that, if that's a role that you guys play in your regular gaming groups? And how quickly do you guys reckon you can clock what kind of GM somebody is when you sit down at the table? So I know I have an annoying habit of like sitting down at a game I haven't played with people before and trying to figure out what the Game Master is about to be like. Squire says, I like seeing how they deal with what I come up with and also how they come up with things for me to deal with. Yeah, I love the back and forth. And I love setting up a really interesting situation to start with and then just following the players as they go. I will admit a point of growth for myself is I need to challenge players more. I tend to start rooting for them and want them to succeed at most of the things they try. So finding ways to sort of enforce that kind of boundary as an unbiased moderator. You don't want to be impossible to defeat. The goal is to have fun with your friends, but it shouldn't be a cakewalk. Learn music. I like engineering moments where the NPCs can deliver cool lines, and I like seeing players get excited about anything because they don't always let on that they're enjoying the session. I know. It is so hard when you sit down and the players you're playing with don't have much to give you back. One of my core rules as a game master is you should get the energy you put in back from the players. Generally, the players are looking to you to sort of have an idea of what this is going to be like, how much energy is too much energy, and establishing that tone is something I try to do very early. But when you run into somebody who's just like, that's cool, it can be really frustrating. I do love when people clap at the end. That's my favorite. That happens sometimes at convention games, and that's when you really know that things went really, really well. Tempo says, how about tabletop role-playing games that pose a question where they'll find the answer through playing the game? Do you have an example of one of those? I think generally that is most adventures. The goal is a question is posed, a situation arrives, and the players react to it. Unless you're playing games where the protagonists are more proactive. One of the things I run into a lot writing superhero stuff, superheroes tend to be reactive as protagonists. Their goal generally is to uphold the status quo, unless the conceit of the campaign is the status quo is shit and we need to tear it down. Those are fun games. I have a lot of fun with that. Tempo Blades in the Dark asks how a crew of scoundrels thrives in a haunted city. Oh, okay. So you're thinking the actual role-playing game has a central conceit that zeroes in the answer to the game. Sort of like City of Mist, what do modern day myths look like? Or trying to think of other games that Honey Heist comes to mind. What if you were a bear and a criminal with a hat? Or I guess a more dramatic version of that question is, will you give in to your criminal tendencies, or will you revert to your primal state by the end of this story? You want to be dramatic with Honey Heist, which is a game I love. That's a wonderful system. I've also been enjoying some solo RPGs, trying to get into finding ways to design some of that stuff for Mutants and Masterminds, because I think it's really interesting as a concept. I've been playing Loner, which is a wonderful game, and I've been playing another solo RPG called Be Like a Crow. I think it's Be Like a Crow or Be a Crow. I gotta double check. Which we have Be Like a Crow and Be Like a Cat, which are two wonderful RPGs. And solo RPGs are very interesting, and something I'm sort of grateful I didn't discover when I was first starting as a game master, because I would have been like, well, I wanted to be a player, and now I can just be the player and I don't have to worry about anybody else. All of the Of Darkness games have that. Squire says finding a balance between prep and improv is always the hard part. I don't want to railroad, but if things go too far off, no maps for where they want to go, no stats or NPCs, it can mess me up. That is definitely an issue that can come up, and that's something you interrogate yourself, what you're comfortable with, and knowing who your players are. If you play with the same people often enough, you sort of get a feel for what they will buy into, what they will accept as players, what they'll take on suspension of disbelief, or what conceit they will take from you that is good. So you sort of know And you should have a rapport with them where you could say, hey guys, I love the direction we're going. I don't know what's over there. So can we take like 10 minutes and I'll just collect my thoughts real quick and then we can go on. Or even if it's that much of a thing, depending on how long you guys have been playing, that might be a good point to cut the session for the week and then come back better next time with with your prep finished. Yeah, Gray Matter says prep all you want, don't lay the tracks. Yeah, and prep, it's important to remember that prep is Game Master facing information. The players will never see that script, hopefully. So as long as you play it cool and don't apologize for your performance, they will assume everything went to plan. And you could even do a fun little trick where they think it's awesome because all these things happened and you could sort of play it off like that was my plan all along. Or you can have the players sort of guide the action for a little bit. You know, a good way to break up and to buy yourself a little bit of time in a situation like this is to have the players deliberate. Be like, so what do you guys think about the clues you have found? And just listen to their theories. That is the listening, I think, is one of the most important skills a lot of game masters need to practice. I often find myself, especially working, most of my games take place online. So I find I get nervous if it's quiet for too long and I feel like I have to interject. But if you stop, let the players talk over things, you can pick up clues on what they think is happening, what some of their theories are, and you can weave some of that stuff into the story on the fly if you're comfortable with that. Tempo says there's also sorcerers. What will you do to get what you want? Yes. Those are great central questions. Very thematic, very pointed for this is the type of story we're going to tell. And I think a lot of these archetypes, a lot of these classifications of GMs do like certain types of stories. So you often find that's another way that you can sort of zero in on what kind of game master is that you're sitting down to play with, or what kind of game master you are. You know, the Tyrant is a big fan of games that involve a lot of combat, games that involve a lot of hardship that is intended to be sort of grim. Things like Zweihander, things like Dungeon Crawl Classic, all sorts of sort of grittier, punishing RPGs. I said it here once, I say it again. Build the set, don't write the script. Jay Gray, can I quote you on that? And then Tempo says, like binding demons to put your desires at the cost of your humanity. Yeah, it's a wonderful conceit to play with. As long as your players are comfortable with that, you know, make sure. And then there's people like the Trickster who like games that have a lot of potential mechanical, you know, twists and turns. There's a sort of a high skill ceiling for learning how to play the game. It takes a lot. There's a learning curve. I do think character creation in Mutants and Mastermind sort of falls under that purview, where tricksters get in their heads and they start mulling over exactly how the game works and what you can do to break it and things like that. You find that a lot more often with players than game masters in Mutants and Masterminds, in my experience. Rebel Moose, I learned a GM tip in a game shop: give your players downtime to RP. If they're talking a long rest or flying a plane somewhere, make them talk to each other for 5 minutes while you scramble to plan. Yep. Yeah, that's the listening trick again. Just sit back, ask them to deliberate about this. And you don't even really need to ask them. The players will do that. If you give them space to vamp, they will take it. You know, you get... And one of the beautiful things that happens between players and game masters is if you play with somebody long enough, they can sort of tell when you need that lifeline. There will be some players in your table who will step in to sort of bail you out a little bit. If they can tell that you're fumbling a little bit, they'll be like, hey, let's go over that plan again, knowing that you're going to be quiet and think about what's going to happen next, or steal one of their ideas that they're deliberating about and call it your own. I find that the cartographer tends to prefer. There's so many, yeah, and that's the cool thing about world building is that you can do all sorts of things. I think a lot of cartographers enjoy a game system that can be melded into a setting rather than a specific game system. So things like the hero system, things like these masterminds, things fantasy age, modern age, epic fantasy is a big draw for a lot of cartographers as well. So things like D&D and Pathfinder are big with them. The actor, and this is a generalization, but a lot of actors don't care for super mechanically complex games because they really just want to get into the story and they don't want to deal with so much of that. When you're looking at an actor, you're dealing with a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, games that have interesting systems or interesting takes on systems. Dread is popular, I think, with a lot of actors because you don't roll any dice. You just pull a Jenga tile whenever you make a check. If you knock the tower over, your character dies. And that's a natural tension mechanic for the horror stories that tend to be told with Dread. Because every time you pull a tile, the next time is going to be more dangerous. So there is that sort of tactile experience to it that adds an extra level of immersion into what's going on. Hi, William Lang. Good to see you. We are talking about types of game masters today. What sort of games they might like, what sort of things they do, what sort of just sort of what their vibe is, what their strengths are, some of their weaknesses. What kind of game masters we are, how we got started, what we look out for with game masters. Greymatter says, I prep characters, settings, items, events, but no outcomes. I also don't prep answers, maybe a few bullet points on resolutions. Otherwise, the players will figure it out. Just be open to how. Yeah, I find, and this will vary from game master to game master. Some people aren't comfortable with improvising to that level, or some people aren't a big fan of mystery boxes where you present a situation and then the player, it's whatever the players choose is the answer. Can be unfulfilling to some game masters, but I am a big fan of it personally. The prisoner archetype plays whatever his players want to play, even though he would rather be playing anything else, in my experience. For those of you just joining us, William, the archetypes I've come up with are the tyrant, the trickster, the cartographer, the social engineer, thanks to Jay Gray, the actor, the prisoner, the judge, and then the GMPC. The tyrant is sort of your us versus them game master, where that old school mentality comes from, where I'm running the dungeon and it's my job to win, which is crucial to the history of our hobby, but it's not for me. The trickster being the player who likes to put people in really interesting situations without a solution and then just watch them go, or really likes game systems that have a lot of crunchy mechanics that they can get into and really just tinker, trying to make all sorts of interesting ways of breaking the game. The cartographer, the world builder, the Tolkien, sort of somebody who has a really interesting world that they've created and they want to share that with people by playing games in it. The social engineer, somebody who is the game master because it is an excuse to hang out with your friends, to bring people together, to have that sort of community feeling. The actor, the person who is just there for the drama and the tea. The prisoner is the forever GM who would rather be a player. The judge is a rules lawyer equivalent to a game master who is more interested in following the rules to the letter of the law and laying down sort of that tough love feeling. I find that they often enjoy older games, or, that Shadowrun setting could really use a role-playing game. Champions, things that have a lot of built-in complexity and weirdness, things that need just a little update would be my preference. And then the GMPC is the person sort of often aligned with the prisoner GM who really really wants just to be either writing a novel about an epic character or has cool ideas for characters, never gets to use them and just thrusts them onto the players because he can't, or they can't get into a regular game without being the GM themselves. So yeah, let me know, guys, what if any other archetypes you can think of, or any other, what draws people into being a game master in your mind? Because there is a ton of responsibility. It's a lot of hats to wear. It's a lot of extra work outside of game time. What is it about being a game master? Or really need to make a Phoenix Wright like system? Yes, that would be so much fun. Objection. And most of the games I run are mutants and masterminds, so I find myself, there's a lot of elements that I get into. I'm an actor GM, I'm a photographer GM, and I think in some ways I'm a trickster GM, where I like sort of introducing unique situations or coming up with weird twists on ideas, things like that. And that's what attracts me to being a game master is the connection with people, the sort of the look in people's eyes when they're trying to figure out the adventure, and the light that comes in when everything goes off. The players got it, and they know what the mystery is, or they stop the back, they roll the 20, and they one shot the villain. Being able to help provide that experience for people I care about is awesome. That's one of my favorite things about being a game master. Learn music. There's the GM who wants to run a different system every week, but I don't really know how widespread that is. I think that is very widespread. I think there was a time in my teens that I was that GM. Or I think that's sort of connected also to the GM who has this amazing pitch for an epic campaign, and then it falls apart after one session for any number of reasons. Sort of I don't want to call them the flake, because life happens, and life is more important than what we do in the game, but it can be very frustrating. The decoy. Or the honeypot, not the honeypot, that's different. Jay Gray, being a GM for me is about creating a timeline. I almost feel like we could have a historian or a student of legends and folklore. Yeah. I run 3 systems right now. There's nothing wrong with running a lot of systems. I'm actually, I'm prepping Wrath and Glory, the new 40K role-playing game for convention in November, that I'm excited to be learning a new game because I haven't gotten into a new game in a little while. And I picked up a game called the Brindlewood Bay Murders, which is also a ton of fun. Or Brindlewood Bay? I gotta double check. Don't let me be a liar. I don't want to be a liar. RPGs, source books. You stopped accepting D&D as a system for your paid games. Good for you, man. That's awesome. William Lang, I use the mad scientist method. I come up with a plot and just let the players move it wherever they can. Mixed a lot with the tricks they're thrown in. Yeah. And I think that's definitely, it's so cool watching them run around in the maze, trying to figure out how it all works. I'm running Wrath and Glory at Yukon in November, and I'm running Brindlewood Bay at Yukon as well. The Brindlewood Bay adventure is set in the Bones TV show universe. It's about they find a KJ stuffed into a amp cabinet at the karaoke world competition, and it's up to the crew to figure out how that murder happened. So I've never written a murder investigation forensic style before, so I'm having a lot of fun diving into how I'm planning those scenes and those, like, how those challenges will work and things like that. And I'm learning a new game system on top of it, so that's been cool. Phage, Kofty, and I'm prepping a one-shot for him now. Awesome. Kofty. What is a COFT? No Fantasy Age. I'm not sure. CFD. I have a show called City of Destiny. That's what I think when I see that abbreviation. Just a quick question, but do I know anything about Swords of the Shadow Planet? I know that it is well underway in development, and Malcolm is very excited about the progress he's been making. I don't know much more than that, and I'm not allowed to talk about more than that, but I do know that it is well underway. Chronicles of Darkness. Putting that in my notes. What about the games that you all are running do you enjoy? Like, what is it that draws you to being a game master for that game? Is it a genre thing? Is it a mechanics thing? Is it just it's good layout, good visual design? Like, yeah, no worries, Tempo. I'm really excited about Swords of the Shadow Planet too. It's gonna be really cool when it comes out. Malcolm's great too. Malcolm helped me write an adventure for Cthulhu Awakens that just came out yesterday called Brinkmanship. So maybe it's the day before yesterday. This week, an adventure came out for Cthulhu Awakens called Brinkmanship. Wanting to make all my M&M offerings of my own IPs Omniverse. That's dope. Yeah. What's your IP like, Jay Gray? And that is such a great thing about Mutants and Masterminds is that you can use it for all sorts of different genres. So it makes a really good multiverse game because you can. And I've been running Multiverse of the Master Mage for the last 2 years. It's been 2 years. I can't believe we're not done with this yet. I overwrote, but Freedom Dark in the Multiverse of the Master Mage, I've had them change their character sheets out when they go to new worlds. We were just in Ravenloft for 6 months, doing a little Mutants and Masterminds magical misadventures of Todd instead of Curse of whatever that vampire's name is. Yeah, and I use that. I mean, yeah, it's so cool with Omniverse stuff because you can do all sorts of different things. I run Star Wars for Mutants and Masterminds, Fallout. I do all sorts of. I use M&M for lots of things. Yeah, just build the set, don't write the script. I really like that, Jay Gray. I wrote that down in my notes as something to say in the future. What is your favorite kind of GM to play with? Speaking of archetypes, because hopefully everybody out there who is GMing, hopefully you get the chance to play from time to time. It's another thing I'm looking forward to about UConn is I'm basically treating that convention as a vacation because I'm playing 3 time slots, so it's gonna be great. I haven't really figured it out yet. I know that the main universe is going to be based on the aftermath of an economic collapse of the U.S. Well, I that feels close to home, which is great. Yeah. William Lang, Hero System, GURP, Cypher System, and Fate, because they're also versatile, M&M, and icons for the power levels and the versatility. Yeah. Sounds like you really enjoyed having the chance to make a system fit the world instead of making a world fit a system, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of levers and dials and things that you can tweak in all of those games to make the game fit what you're trying to play. Instead of trying to shove a square peg in a round hole, you're putting silly putty into that round hole. I'm the only one who's GM for you in 4 years. Well, I'm glad I was able to play with you. I'm sorry you don't get to play more often, but I have definitely been there. I had a great time in our actual play. It was a lot of fun. Squire says, I guess I don't have a favorite type of GM, but I know my least favorites. What are your least favorites, Squire? I'm happy. I know you mentioned that one GM earlier who was just obnoxious about punishing you, which is never fun. Ideally, I like to play with a GM who shines the spotlight equally on everybody, says Learn Music. Yes, that's it's a tough skill to have. Especially if you are in a situation where maybe the GM doesn't know everybody equally and they have a friend with them who brought them into the fold and they sort of already have that rapport. That can lead to some favoritism. Other unfortunate situations can lead to favoritism, and then you start getting feelings like, why are we here? I played for 6 months in a game where there was no reason for my character to be involved, and that wasn't from a character design perspective. That was just the GM had one character that they wanted to talk to the whole time, and one character who could actually advance the plot, and the rest of us were their sidekick. And that was frustrating. That player group was the group that I learned the hard lesson that no gaming is better than bad gaming. Because it's easy to get pulled into, this is my gaming group, this is what I'm here for, this is where I'm at, and you get sort of bogged down. And enforcing your boundaries for yourself is something that I'm still learning how to do. It's tough. The rules lawyer is the other one, I guess. Someone would rather emphasize the rules over fun for everyone. Yeah, I definitely agree about that. I like the I'm a real cool GM personally, which is, I think anybody who's watched any of my shows can tell. I'm often flying by the seat of my pants and just excited to see what happens. Troy says I play it cool, but I don't think I play it cool. William Lang, other than the actual play and helping out Jay with the thing, I haven't played as a player character in about 10 years. Well, my fellow forever GMs, dang it, I unplugged my camera again. Why are you like this? Where are you? Okay. Sorry, my camera came out. But my fellow forever GMs, how do you like it? How do you find it? Is that, would you like to play more often? Are you content where you're at? Do you feel like you're missing out on what part of what makes this hobby so great? Yeah, you let me turn a house into an elevator. I did let you turn a house into an elevator. It worked for Willy Wonka. It's good enough for us. Teppo says, don't forget Powered by the Apocalypse and Forged in the Dark. There's also the Fantasy Flight Star Wars and the upcoming Cosmere RPG, which uses stunt dice, which may be inspired by Age. I don't know for sure or not if it was inspired by Age. I did stop by the Cosmere room at Gen Con this year. I was just excited to see all the buzz, see what the game was like. It was a cool chat with the people in there. I didn't get to stay for very long. The main premise is what caused the breakup and coalitioning of the Union under a much larger number of states and making it look more like the EU. I won't fully know until I run games in it. And I like that attitude. I won't know until I run games in it. I often say that no plan survives first contact with the players, and they will often find ways to insert something that was clearly right in front of your face that you didn't see until a player mentioned it as a problem with the logic or a unique exploit that could happen. I've had that happen to me many times. Great, Jay Grays. I'm okay with running. I'd like to play some, but I really enjoy running games. Yeah, Squire, I enjoy it. I have an NPC hero that was a requirement the players put on me to have, so it's the best of both worlds. Awesome. Yeah, I like it too. I have a lot of difficulty turning the GM part of my brain off when I'm sitting down as a player. And I find that is a double-edged sword of its own, because that can be a GM who is hard to play with because they keep interjecting, they keep inserting themselves. Or as a GM player, primarily GM player, you might be good at helping other people grab the spotlight. I find that's when I am playing, the thing I enjoy the most is spotting the moments that other people get to shine and helping them stand up in the spotlight for it if they're comfortable with that. William Lang, I like creating adventures, but sometimes I want to go to an autopilot and see what other people can come up with. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I find that I sometimes get that rush when I am doing, when I read a module for the first time, just to get the twists and turns. I'd like to think of, Rebel Moose says, I'd like to think of myself as my usual GM deserves a chance to be a player GM. That is a vital service you are providing to the community, Rebel Moose. I mean, I won't know the political ramifications or the cultural ones until I have a group at session 0 and figuring out what kind of story we need to tell together in the setting. That's fair. I'm a big fan of leaving holes in the prep, specifically for player contributions. Things that, sometimes when I'm handing out an outline for a game, a series I'll run, or a campaign I'm going to start, I'll say, this is the conceit. There is an evil business in this game. I haven't named it or anything. Does anybody have a character that would be interested in being connected to an evil business, and do you want to flesh it out, or do you want me to flesh it out? Or I want to include a super school in this game, but I'm not going to make all the NPCs. Who's your best friend? Who's your favorite teacher? Who's your least favorite teacher? And open up that discussion so that we're all churning together and building the investment in the world that we're doing. I am taking a break from GMing for 3 months, other than actual plays for Green Ronin. Starting today. My last stream was last Wednesday. So I'm taking some time to recover, to get some spoons back, to finish some projects. There's a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline I can't wait to share with you all. Any parting thoughts about types of Game Masters from everybody? What to look out for? How to prepare other players for what they might run into if this is their first time in the game? What are your guys' shortcuts for explaining what a role-playing game is to people? Because sometimes it can be hard for people outside of the hobby to wrap their minds around. It's a little easier now with it, entering the zeitgeist or whatever. But when I was working retail, I convinced a lot of my friends to come play a game with me, but I had to tell them what it was. Squire says, one of the things that's really helped with world building is 2 of my sons are in school in game, so we use that for world building and history class mostly. That's awesome. Yeah. Just thought of offering a free game for 4 seats on a raffle based on those that review and rate my published materials. Yeah. That is a great way to encourage people to pick up things and to give reviews. Those of you who don't know, reviews are one of the best things you can do for any creative. Writers, game designers, artists, reviews are always appreciated. Rebel Moose, I explained TTRPGs to my boss. As you know, how you tell yourself you do things differently in an action movie, that's a TTRPG. Yeah, that's a great, succinct way to put that in. The auxiliary GM, the player who steps in and runs games when the main GM gets burned out. I love that. The auxiliary GM. The overload. He home rules the game so much with useless stuff it is virtually unrecognizable from the original intent of the game. Bro, why are we playing D&D when Eminem exists? Why are you making a superhero D&D game? You could just play a superhero game. Hi, Logicor. How you doing today? Tempo says there's also Ryutama, which is a Japanese slice of life fantasy TRPG where player civilians go on journeys secretly supervised by GMPC shape-shifting dragons. I love that. That reminds me of that cartoon of the dragons playing humans in houses. I'm sure you guys have seen that around. Shortcut, we talk about a story, use probability to determine story outcomes. There was that interview on the Punisher Actors podcast where DM literally took him through an encounter. Yes, I love that with Deborah Ann Wall. Deborah Ann Wall, I think, is a wonderful GM. What's the name of her show? I love that. I watched all of it. It's been a long time, though. Sundries, and something. Relics and Rarities, not Sundries and somethings. Yeah, that's and that was a wonderful way to, instead of getting bogged down in the minutia of it, just this is what it is. And then once the people are hooked into that concept, that idea, then you can bring them in with the mechanics and all that fun stuff. But you want to show them why this is exciting. There's the Made RPG. Yeah, exactly what you think. Yeah, I've seen that at Origins a couple times. Logicor, doing all right. How goes? I'm having a fabulous day. I tend to hate I will homebrew D&D 5e every game. There's already an awesome system for it, just so I don't have to learn a new game GM. Makes me pull out here. Yeah, the square peg GM. I'm gonna call that. And I get it. It is a lot to ask somebody to learn a game well enough to GM it. But it is very rewarding. I say as somebody who is trying to learn 2 new systems to run them before November. So, well, I said I was taking a break, man. That's okay. It's going to be a lot of fun. The stories I've got planned are a ton of fun. And I'm exhilarated to be doing something new. Logicor, I'm running for Yukon in Ann Arbor, Michigan in November. I'll be running Wrath and Glory, the new 40K role-playing game. Running a scenario called Forward Unto Dawn, where a group of Grey Knights go to investigate a strange ship from the Dark Age of technology that fell out of the warp. And the other one is the Brindlewood Bay Murders, which is Murder, She Wrote, the RPG. Which is powered by the Apocalypse, I'm pretty sure is its root system. But I'd have to double check. It might be Gumshoe. I have to double check. Jay Gray, BDSM turns. One player is the dom of a group of subs in a PG-ish fantasy. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you were from Ann Arbor, Logicor? Yeah, it's a cool spot. Well, everyone, that is it's about time. Sounds like Darkness from Konosuba would enjoy the party. Well, you know, want to run a Halo Mythic RP at some point. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Jake Gray knows what's up. That's where that ship comes from. They're going to fight a bunch of Spartans, Bloodletters in Spartan armor, or Mjolnir armor. Ugh. It's going to be great. Well, so yeah, that is sort of the rundown of sort of different types of game masters, sort of what attracts people to those kinds of play styles, what to look out for, what sort of games they like to try. Yeah, lots of discussions about tips and tricks for how to deal with some of these game masters, how to have the most fun with them. As for updates, I want to ask you all, we're going to have another Joy of Game Mastering next Tuesday. What do you guys want to talk about? What would be a topic that you would find interesting, or what sort of advice do we need? Because I am looking for a topic for next week. I want to provide something that is useful to everyone. It could be mutants and masterminds related. It could be setting our system agnostic. It can be whatever y'all want to talk about. Logic Force says, I am the bullet pointer GM. I only plan broad bullet points for my games and make it a point to have the characters hit those point, and anything else is gravy. Yep. Jay, you want stat blocks? You want me to do stat blocks? What kind of stat blocks? We had a very interesting conversation about stat blocks actually this week. Sort of is stat block a popular enough term now to delve into, like, to include it in our text instead of that being a sort of outside baseball conversation topic? I know so many people know the word stat block, but I also live in a gaming echo chamber, so I don't know. Learn Music says, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about what to use from pre-published adventures versus what to leave out. Basically, how do you determine the most useful bits? The creation and utilization of stat blocks. Okay. I'd love to learn more about Titan City lore. I do love Titan City. I think we'll definitely talk about Titan City at some point, but I do think there's a good discussion between pre-published adventures, what to leave out, and stat blocks. I think all of those topics sort of go together. So I'm going to write that down. Pre-published. That's what we'll talk about next week. 5 p.m. EST, same bat time, same bat channel. Squire says, the only topic I can think of maybe too niche. Stop second-guessing yourself and have fun with your players. The Squire Cortez story. Squire, I promise you are your biggest critic. You are the person who is giving yourself the most credit. Your players are having a great time. If they weren't having a great time, they wouldn't be your players. I know they're your family and they have to play with you, but they don't have to play with you. So our topic next week will be stat blocks and pre-published adventures and what to leave in, what to leave out, how to determine the most useful bits. And maybe we can use the new Chrono Crisis adventure as an example. I'll grab that and we'll dissect that live, see how that works. It's a very good topic, to be honest, and it is something that is very much always on my mind as a game developer. We have to leave out a lot more than we would like to. If it was up to me, I would write a 300-page book for everything. So, I'm the person who took our sixth adventure Nether War campaign and stretched it out over 3 years of, I think, what are we at? We're at 150 episodes now or something stupid like that. Yeah, I'm the problem. It's me. But I do promise I will put on my editor's hat, not my GM who doesn't want to stop the game hat, to go through what to use, what to leave out, how to modify things. Yeah, it'll be good. This will help me for the next release, not tomorrow's, but well, I only helped write the time travel adventures. I didn't learn how to do the time traveling. Otherwise, I would be helpful yesterday. All right, well, everybody, that's my time. We will see you next time. Until then, just news, Thursday should be up tomorrow. If you're interested in coming to talk about some Thursday stuff. I don't know what the topic is for tomorrow, but We are off for Mutants and Masterminds on Monday because of Indigenous Peoples Day. So we will be back. I'll be back here on Tuesday, and I'll see you then. So thanks for the chat, everybody. And until next time, please remember that you're doing the best you can. You're a great game master, and you're having a wonderful time. I'll see you soon.